Greetings, YouTube. This is a story out of Indianapolis, Indiana. And it's about a guy named Kluge. No, I'm not making that up. See, apparently John Kluge was a music teacher in high school, and he refused to use the pronouns and names of transgender students. Flat out, he said it was on his religious reasons. He did not have to call them by their names and their pronouns, which is terrible and horrible. Well, one of my problems with this whole thing, it's when I'm making this video, is how the media is presenting this situation. So there's 3 points. The guy finally resigned because of the pressure from students and teachers, and then he decided he wanted his job back, and the court and this school said no, and the U.S. courts are just backed that up. The U.S. court has ruled that a high school did not violate the First Amendment rights of a music teacher. John Kluge refused on religious grounds to use transgender students' preferred names. Kluge stigmatized transgender students, causing them demonstrable emotional harm, says a judge. Well, I'm taking exception to the concept of preferred. My sister changed her name. When she changed her name didn't become her preferred name. It just became her name. Now you might say, well, some of these students didn't have it legally done. And well, I'm sure that some did. I work with a woman whose grandson just had his name legally changed. And so that's now his name. The name he had been given at birth is no longer his name, period. It's not that complex. My ex changed his name. That's now his name. Okay, cool. Use it. But you have to also realize that in America, there's nothing legally preventing you by going from any name. So long as you are not trying to avoid legal consequences, you have committed no crime. You are not trying to perpetrate a crime. You're not trying to avoid, being caught for a crime or anything like that. You can call yourself anything. You can go by your middle name. I used to have a boss that went by a middle name. Hated his first name. Preferred William. We called him Will. He liked it. His first name was Hank. He hated Hank. Yeah, Hank William. Yeah. Not smart parents. But so you just can do it. I could call myself Juan Carlos if I wanted to. Though if I were going to go with a Spanish style name, I'd probably go with Javier. Javier is an awesome name. I love the sound of that. It's Javier. Awesome. But so stop disrespecting these kids. They want to use a name, just use it. Now, I guess at one point in this whole process before he resigned, he'd cut a deal with principal saying, "I'll just use their last names." But since he was using the last names only of transgender students, that was a bit of a stigma, because it was pointing out every time he said their name that I know that you are a transgender person. I refuse to use your name, so I'm using your last name. And that's another act of disrespect. And eventually the school said, yeah, hey, you know something? That's not a good policy. You got to use their real name, which is when he resigned, which is, good. Let's get rid of this guy. We don't need this kind of guy. If your religious beliefs say that you can't do something and that conflicts with your job, well, then go get another job. No one's making you do that. No one's saying that you have to abide by that particular religious edict. You've chosen to abide by that particular religious edict. And if that edict, runs counter to your capacity to commit, the full scope of your job, then go find another job. It's that simple. If you're going to work in the public, you have to work in the public and treat everyone with respect, particularly if you're working in such an emotionally charged environment as a school, where you're dealing with kids who are developing and changing and growing over time. You can have a vast impact on the lives of a kid if you're not careful, for good or ill. I've had teachers that I still have fond memories of, and I still have teachers that I still despise to this day. They were crappy teachers. They brought their baggage to work every goddamn day, and they were more than willing to lay it on our shoulders. So yeah, there are people out there that don't need to be teachers. And there are people out there who do a great job. And if your religious beliefs conflict with your capacity to do your job as a teacher, don't be a teacher.